work. Right, have I got everything? I think I've got everything. Yeah, let's wing it.
Let's wing it. Might be short and sweet this morning, but you know.
It'll be fine. 3, 2, 1. This is Trainer Talk, the podcast, brought to you by Sharon Gaskin of the Trainers Training Company and me, Ginette Tessier of the Get That Gang. In our weekly show, we cover news and views from our businesses, along with a top-of-mind topic. Of course, it wouldn't be Trainer Talk, the podcast, without the Dog Walking Digest, and every now and again we invite a guest along to share their experience and expertise. After 90 episodes of just audio, we're now on YouTube as well. So feel free to catch up there. Just search for the Trainers Training Company or the Get That Gang, or download us on audio only through your favourite podcast streamer. So why not sit back with a cuppa, make that journey or chore go a little bit quicker with our weekly inspiration for developing your training business. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Trainer Talk, the podcast, and we are at episode 99. It's a 99 flake, Sharon.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! It's so exciting. One away from the treble digits.
I know.
Who'd have thunk it? A couple of years ago in that September when we first started and first introduced the very first one and what we're going to talk about here then. Oh my goodness me, such a lot has happened since then, but it's also happened in the last 2 weeks, right? Because we didn't have a podcast last week for a very good reason that obviously we will talk about. But how have you been apart from that?
Well, there hasn't really been that much going on apart from that, have there? Because, you know, pretty much laid me low for a week, you know, which certainly was very unexpected. Well, obviously we're talking about the vaccine, the great vaccine debacle.
Indeed.
You know, and regular listeners will have heard about my my first invitation that was a non-invitation because it was a mistake. And then I was told to sort of go away and get back in the queue and wait my turn. But then my turn came again a bit, you know, quicker than I thought. It was it all happened very quickly, which was kind of
it really did
in a way.
Yeah.
but bizarrely, both of us,
I know,
on the same weekend.
I know, so odd. And what was really, really weird is that with the last recording of the podcast that we did was obviously neither of us knew at that point that we were going to have our jabs the following weekend. Excuse me, sorry. How rude. My brother trying to call me in the middle of a podcast. So neither of us knew when we recorded the last one that we were going to have our jabs. And then on the Wednesday, I think it was, I got a text through saying, you can book now. And to be honest, because it looked official, but it was trying to send me to somewhere that I've not been before, because I was anticipating either my GP surgery or the BIC, the Bournemouth International Centre, because they set up a huge, great thing in the ground floor there, because it's a big arena of people, you know, going through and having their jabs done. So I assumed it would be one of those two places. So I had to look up and just make sure it wasn't one of these scams or something.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, well, you know, they'll be booking me in for April or something like that, because you know, still being just below 50, wasn't expecting it. Holding on, so you know, wasn't expecting to be called until at least April, and then it said, oh yes, you know, Saturday the 20th. Really? And I had to look at my calendar. That's this Saturday. Hang on. So right, brilliant. Yeah, I'm going to get it done. And also the fact that it's over the weekend, it means that because I'm in a support bubble with Mum and John, it means I'll be up there. So if I do feel ill, they can walk the dog for me. It's not like I'm here and you know, he's got no other choice but to either stay inside, and that wouldn't be very pleasant to clear up, or, you know, up at there's lovely big garden, all the rest of it, and people to walk him. So it was absolutely ideal, to be honest, but it was just so bizarre. And then finding out, I mean, we'd already planned, hadn't we, the following Monday, because of other reasons, we weren't going to be able to record the podcast then anyway. We'd actually put it off until last Thursday. for various diary clashes and reasons. And so yeah, so then to find out that you'd had yours Sunday evening, and my experience was very different to your experience, and we will talk about that when we in top of mind. So I won't go into that now. But it's just happened so quickly. I mean, fantastic that it has, but really, really quick. So I mean, trying to remember pre-jab, what happened and what was going on. I think it's one of two significant things that have happened for me, certainly since the last time we recorded a podcast, and the other was this morning, doing our first outdoor boot camp for the gym. Oh, it was so good to get out and be out in the fresh air and be with other people and doing exercises, and it was great. It was really, really good. But that's it for my 2 weeks, other than what we're going to discuss in top of mind. So how about you?
Yeah, well,
ho hum.
It was bizarre. It was like literally when I got this text, it was on the Saturday, and it was like, oh, I was about to send it to you, and I'm like, oh no, because you're actually having yours, so I'm not gonna
yeah, in the middle of the queue, getting a text from you going, oh, Sharon's got hers.
No. But it honestly, last weekend, it literally felt like everybody was having this blooming thing. It was like they'd obviously they'd just gone through everybody on some kind of speed dial. I think it was like everybody was having it
totally done. Well, I put a post on Facebook saying, vaccine booked for Saturday, and so many people came back, and people that I know are younger than me were coming back going, yep, got mine booked on Saturday as well. So there must have been a huge push for the weekend. Remind me to say about accidentally queue jumping as well, but carry on.
Well, no, they literally, because apparently they did over 1 million on that weekend, last weekend, didn't they? Saturday and Sunday. So, I mean, and I'm not surprised, because it literally did feel like anybody was like, come in and have your vaccine.
Totally, completely. And that is actually, funnily enough, part of the reason why I ended up queue jumping. But I'm not proud of this, but it's just one of those things where it's just like, okay, that happened then. So shall I just tell the story and then we get it done?
Story.
Well, so the kind of the backstory to this, and part of the reason why it happened was that maybe back in February, and I mentioned that they set up this big vaccination centre in the BIC. The first or second weekend that they'd set it up, they actually put a call out through social media for anybody over the age of 70 to just come on in and get booked and get done, because they clearly had spare spaces and that kind of thing. And having put my post on Facebook and got lots of people coming back going, yep, got mine booked as well, living in the local area, I had assumed that, or had it in my head that there might be extra capacity, so they might be doing the same thing again. They might be doing a call out over social media and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of in my head as well. The other thing that was in my head was that I didn't want to turn up too early, because any time that there had been some kind of appointment system, so I had to have my eyes checked, as we know from a few weeks ago, various bits and pieces. Anytime you had an appointment to go somewhere, everybody was saying, don't turn up too early. You need to turn up on time for your appointment, but don't turn up too early, because we've not got the ability for you to wait in a socially distant manner. So it's like a distanced manner. So I was like, had these things in my head. So on the Saturday, I drove to the place, it was the clinic, just around the corner. And as I'm driving past, there's all these people outside in a queue with masks on and 2 meters apart and all the rest of it. And it was probably 3 minutes to 1. My appointment was at 1 o'clock, about 3 minutes to 1 at this point. And the parking was getting a bit interesting down there. And I saw that they actually had a car park connected to the clinic. So I thought, right, I'll turn around and go back in there, thinking, well, I don't understand why nobody else has parked in there, and there's nothing on the thing to say don't park here already. So all right, fine. But because I'd gone past and turned around and gone back, I'd gone past the queue. So as I'm walking up to the centre, and about 2 minutes to one at this point, there's a guy who's obviously acting as some kind of marshal official type thing in a high vis vest, and everybody's got masks on. So high vis vest out the front. So I thought, right, I'll just ask him, because I'm thinking, I wonder if this is a turn up and take your chances thing, or if all of these people have got, appointments at the same time as me. So all I wanted to do was say to him, excuse me, I've got a 1 o'clock appointment. Shall I join the back of the queue? Right? So I got the first part out. Excuse me, I've got a 1 o'clock appointment. At which point he goes, oh, have you? Oh, well, you better stand there then. I'm like, okay. And there's all these people. So clearly a couple of people in the queue were unhappy about this, because we know what the Brits are like when they're queuing. And, this guy must have said something. I didn't hear it, but what I did hear was him going, oh, did I say that out aloud like this? And the woman behind going, yes, you did, like this. And I'm thinking, hang on. Yeah, I'm being made out to be, all I'm doing is doing what the person in charge has told me to do. So I said, look, I'm just standing here. I'm asking whether I should join the queue, and he told me to stand here. And she's like this, and I'm like, well, stuff you then. Stuff you then, because I'm an innocent party here. I know that this has ended up with me queue jumping, but it's not like I was going to the front of the queue to say none of these people are important, I need to go first. I was simply trying to ask the question, does it matter? Because I didn't want to miss my slot. That was the thing. It's like, are they going to be silly and go, oh, well, you're here, you've been in the queue 10 minutes, not our problem, kind of thing. It's like, how was I supposed to know how long the queue was going to be and how many they booked in and all that kind of stuff? Before I had a chance to even think through all of this stuff, one person came out, so he goes to me, come on then, you go in. And I'm like, Christ, I haven't even got my mask out yet. All right, yeah, fine. No, so I was in, and it was very, very well run. But the guy that was a bit snarky, he came in maybe 2 minutes after me. It's not like people were having to wait a huge amount of time. But it was like, oh, well, I managed to queue jump then. Okay. So, what can you do? I was quite happy to stand at the back of the queue if that's what they wanted me to do, but he's just like, oh, you've got it. And I'm like, okay, did I sound that authoritative? I must have had my assertive head on that day.
Yeah, probably.
It's like, okay, yeah, sorry, but it's not like anybody missed out as a result of it. It is just, I have no idea how long those people have been queuing, because when there were the grumbles in the queue, the official sort of turned around and said, oh, have you all got 1 o'clock appointments? And they're like, yeah, like this. And he clearly hadn't realised or didn't know or whatever, but I'm like, well, I was just trying to ask a question and you told me to stand here. What am I going to do? I'm going to stand here and then wait to be called in. So it was in and out within the space of 5 minutes, really. Very, very quick, very efficient, very well run. And just hats off to both the NHS and the volunteers that are supporting it. And I know a few people that are, volunteering to support and that kind of thing. Brilliantly organised. Really, really well done.
Honestly, we were talking about this last night and saying it is absolutely incredible how just they've managed, not just this, because I don't know a single person who's gone in and sort of said, oh, it was a shambles. Everybody has said, how sort of well organised it's been. And we hit 30 million yesterday.
I know. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
30 million people. It's just amazing. But having said that, I did find my own experience a little bit
yours was a bit different, wasn't it?
Quite bizarre, because it felt like being sheep dipped, because there were so many people turning up at this vaccination centre, and also they clearly had commandeered this sort of industrial, some kind of warehouse on an industrial estate, which was not the most inspiring place in the world when you're feeling a little bit nervous about, and I was driving along thinking, oh my goodness, I got really emotional because I was like thinking, I don't know, it just kind of really hit me thinking, how have we got to this? How have we, the most bizarre sort of, I don't know, surreal, how have we got to this where you could see so many people heading into this mass vaccination centre? Yeah. It just felt like something off.
It's very Handmaid's Tale. It's
it was
quite
just
dystopian.
What is going on here? What is going on? So that was a bit. I was a bit sort of not in the best frame of mind, you know, where I went there. And then of course when I got in there, you're sort of sitting there in these sort of, you know, these great big sort of aisles, and people had, I guess you have the same experience where people were on chairs and there were these sort of aisles, bit like, you know, bit like you're in IKEA or something, you know, you've got aisle D, aisle E and all this stuff. I mean, it was massive.
Yeah.
So you're sort of sitting there, and then I was sort of peering down the other end of the aisle, and I could see, and it was a bit like being on an airplane, you know, when they're coming down with the drinks trolley. But this time they weren't bringing gin and tonic. They were bringing your COVID vaccine.
Anything from the bar. Yes. Vegetarian option. Yeah.
I know. You know, and I kept thinking, oh, it's all right. I've got ages yet, because, you know, they're still up near the top, you know. But then what I didn't realise was that they were coming down both aisles. So because I was at the end of this aisle, and then there was sort of this curtain here, and I'm sitting there minding my own business. And the next minute, she appears from behind the curtain with her trolley. And I was like, oh, God. It's here. The moment Ruth has arrived, and she's like, with two nurses, she's like, okay, like, roll sleep. Are you left-handed, right-handed? Let's do it on you, you know, do it on the left, you know, because you don't write with that. And I was like, oh, and I'm thinking, oh, hang on a minute, hang on. What's the matter? Well, oh, I'm not really sure whether I want to have it. She said, well, why would you not want to have it? And I said, oh, well, I'm a bit scared. And she said, what are you scared of? And I said, well, the sort of side effects, you know, because I just found the whole concept of just sort of being perfectly well and healthy, rolling up to this sort of, you know, depressing warehouse where somebody stuck something in your arm with the risk that actually it could make you really poorly. Just not an appealing prospect.
Absolutely, yes. And, you know, I mean, it's easy after the fact to sort of say, well, better than the alternative. But yeah, I can imagine. I mean, mine, they weren't that big. It wasn't that big an operation. If I'd gone to the BIC, it would probably felt the same. But this was a very small kind of little clinic, so you couldn't really see too many people at any one time. But yours, I mean, go on, carry on, because this... I'm laughing now, and I'm going to say it's hilarious because I know it's okay. But
so she starts talking to me. So she said, oh, well, what, you know, what are you scared of? And I said, oh, you know, the vaccine. She's like, oh, I can understand that. I can absolutely understand that. She said, but, you know, I've had it, and I've had it twice, you know. But then she said, but mind you, she said, I was worse than you were. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I got up off the chair twice, she said. This is the nurse. I'm like, okay. And then she's like, oh, you'll be fine. And then she said, but having said that, well, you probably feel like you've been run over by a bus for the next 2 days. But other than that, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, you're going to feel awful, but it's going to be fine. Yeah,
probably. So I was like, okay. So then I'm like, sort of like going, oh, I don't know about this. I really don't know. And she's like, honestly, if you don't want to have it, you don't have to have it. You can go away and you can come back again and make another appointment. And I thought, oh, I don't know about doing that, because if I just, you know, I've actually got here. I'm sitting in the chair. So, you know, so then she goes to me, have you got anybody with you? And I said, well, yeah, my husband's come with me. And she said, where is he? I said, oh, well, he's in the car park. She said, would you want him to come in? I went, oh, God, he's going to kill me if I don't have it. You know, so he was like, so I rang him and I said, oh, you know, can you just come in? And he was like, what's up? And I said, oh, just come in. He was like, all right. Anyway, so then he appears. He said, what's the matter with you? And I said, oh, I'm not sure whether what. Oh, just get it done, you know.
Ever the sympathetic.
We'll get it done, you know, what have you. And so then she's talking to me again, and she said, okay, do you want to have it done? I said, okay. All right, okay, do it. So Rome Muslim, do it. So I'm sitting there, and I put my arm out, and then I did exactly what she did. Oh, don't get that needle away from me.
It's her fault for putting the idea of standing up into your head.
So, in the meantime, the people on the other side, they'd probably done about 10 in this time. Well, I've been faffing around, you know. And then they brought another person. So by this point, there were 3 people trying to persuade me to have this COVID vaccine. Oh. And then, anyway, then she goes, so then I went, okay, deep breath. Right, I'm going to have it. Right, sat back down again. This time I'm going to do it. I'm going to have it. Right, you know, and put my arm out. And then she goes to me. She goes, looks into my, it literally looks into my eyes, looks into my face. Is that your brother again?
No, go on, carry on.
What is it?
No, I'm just writing down what I'm going to write in the excerpt for this episode.
Oh, I see, right. So then she looks into my eyes and she goes, "Are you happy to have this COVID vaccine?" And I went, "No, I'm not happy to have this COVID vaccine." She goes, "Well, we can't give it to you then." So then Jim goes, "No, she didn't mean that. She meant she's not happy to have it." But she will have it.
She's having it, but she's not happy about it. Oh, those poor nurses.
Okay, right, all right. You sure about that? You know, yeah, fine. Anyway, so then that was it. Sort of job done, you know. And I was like, "Oh, okay, right, I've had it done." So I go back home and whatnot, and so I'm sitting there all night thinking, you know, just waiting for something to happen. And I was like, "Oh, okay, nothing's happening. I feel all right." Okay, woke up Monday morning and thought, "Oh, fantastic, feel fine. I'm going to be one of these annoying people that just doesn't have any reaction whatsoever. Fantastic, happy days."
Mm-hmm.
Came into the office, you know, starting my work, doing my email, you know, what have you. And then about 11 o'clock, I was like, "Oh, we don't feel very well."
Oh dear. Poor Sharon.
Lie down. I know. And then it was all downhill from then on in, really. So
yeah. So you were struck down really for 4 days, weren't you?
Yeah.
Not brilliant. Not brilliant.
Not brilliant at all. But that was the most bizarre thing, because every time I kept thinking I was all right, I'd have a little, you know, felt terrible. And then having a little, I mean, certainly by Tuesday lunchtime, I thought it was all right again. You know, my temperature had gone. I took Jem out for a walk. I came back, you know, started to try and do some work. And I was like, "I'm fine," you know, and I literally was fine. And then I wasn't fine again. To go and lie down again.
It really hit you in waves, didn't it? And you couldn't eat for a little while. It was just really bad.
Eat, you know, I won't go into all the, you know, but you know, it wasn't very nice, really. No. It wasn't very nice at all.
By contrast.
Yeah, all right.
Well, I mean, this leads us nicely into top of mind topic, right? So by contrast, I had mine at 1 o'clock. By about 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, I was starting to feel tired and just a little bit headachy. Not an actual headache, but you know, when there's one brewing, there's one there. So luckily, as I say, I was up at Mum and John's, so I ended up going to bed probably 8:30, 9 o'clock, something like that. Slept fitfully through to the next morning, when Scamp woke me up about 7:30ish, something like that. Went downstairs, fed him, let him out into the garden, whatever, and just sort of sat on the sofa. I can't remember. I think I had a cup of tea, but I was just kind of, okay, do I need to go back to bed? Do I stay? I couldn't quite work out whether I was well enough to get up and power through, or ill enough to go back to bed and feel the benefit. So I thought, well, I'll try going back to bed, and I'm glad I did. But it was real kind of, you know, in between as to whether or not it would have made me feel better. I didn't feel like I was going to sleep. I think that was the thing. But I did feel tired. So I thought, well, I'll try going back to bed. And then Mum came in about 11:30, mainly because she was trying to get Scamp to go for a walk. Now, if I'm not there, he's normally ready and fine and all the rest of it. But if I'm there, he thinks I'm going to take him for a walk, obviously. So he came up and jumped on the bed while she was trying to put his collar on him. And I was like, oh, for God's sake. And of course, because the curtains were drawn, it was quite dark in there, and she couldn't see to put the collar on because it was so poor light. So I said, look, just switch the light on. And oh, but it'll wake you up. I'm kind of awake, Mum. I'm talking to you. Just switch the light on. So switch the light on, put his collar on, and then I thought, do you know what? I'm not sure if I'm going to feel better by staying in bed. I know that I'm not good for doing anything other than sitting down at the moment, but I don't think that staying in bed is going to actually make me feel better. You know, that when you get overtired. So I thought, right, I'll get up, I'll get dressed and see how we do. I can always come back to bed if I need to. So by the time Mum got back from the dog walk, excuse me, I was dressed and downstairs, and then really for the remainder of the day, I was very tired, but it was like I wasn't tired as in sleepy, but my eyes were really
Yeah,
tired.
yeah,
Very,
yeah.
very bizarre,
That,
and
I have that.
yeah,
Yeah,
and this sort of low level
yeah.
headache, as I was saying. So I mean, over the course of the day, I think the previous day I'd taken a couple of ibuprofen. Did I take them? I think I took them about an hour after the jab, and then another couple in the evening. I'd taken a couple that morning, and then probably it was around about 5 o'clock that afternoon, sitting on the sofa. I'd had something to eat. Excuse me, which was fine. I mean, I didn't feel like eating a lot, but I thought, as long as I feel well enough to eat, then I need to eat something. And then about 5 o'clock, I sort of sat up on the sofa and headache's gone. I feel all right. No, I'm okay now, and that was it.
Yeah.
Done. And then Sunday night rather, going into Monday, I had the best night's sleep. Woke up on Monday morning thinking, oh, feel brilliant. Feel like I've had a really good night's sleep. And that was it. I've really had nothing since, other than the usual symptoms that we've been talking about for the past couple of months.
Well, funny you should say that. Because like I obviously, on Friday when I said to you, I feel like, fantastic. I felt fantastic on Friday.
Yeah.
First time since blooming, Monday.
Yeah.
Saturday morning, I woke up and I was like, oh God,
No.
I feel terrible.
Oh, no.
I felt like just that horrible tiredness and just that really and I was thinking, oh my God, I've had another relapse. I can't believe this. This is so annoying. But
Yeah.
you know what I'm going to say. So I was like, I'll just have a little look in my diary.
Let's see what's going on. Yeah.
For 27th of March 2020. Was it 27 or 28,
Yeah.
in which I reported horrible hormone day. I'll just have a little look in my diary for 2019. And let's have a look at, 27th of March. Oh, there it is again. Hormone day. Feeling,
Yeah.
it's isn't it?
It is. It really is.
Blooming day for 2 years
Yeah.
running. 3 years. I mean,
Goodness me.
But it is bizarre, isn't it?
I know. I mean, we should get blooming medals for dealing with this at the same time as dealing with the after effects of the jab.
So it wasn't
Come on.
But,
honestly, yeah. And I have noticed recently that I've been coming over all warm, just in waves, like way more than usual, and just kind of sitting there and thinking, blimey, I'm going to have to find wherever I put the fan that I got from Spain many years ago. Give it a bit of a wave to kind of cool down. But anyway, that's a whole other subject.
There we go.
So there we are. And the reason, folks, that we wanted to link this to the top of mind topic this week is that Sharon and I both had exactly the same vaccine, right? So we had the AstraZeneca Oxford jab. And we thought that it was a really good metaphor for how things can work out in your business, where you can think that you are doing the same as somebody else, or you've got the same stuff as somebody else, and yet you have a vastly different outcome. Or you might have flavors of the same, but it will just be slightly different. And of course, the thing that's different is you are the thing that makes the difference in any of this stuff, and if that's not a fantastic way of understanding that this is great news, because it means that you are the thing that can make the difference in your business. So if you're operating in a really competitive marketplace, then you don't have to worry about everybody's doing the same, because they're not doing the same, because they're not you. Isn't that right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It really is the difference that makes the difference, isn't it? At the end of the day. Sorry to burst your bubble, but the I was thinking about, why do people react differently to vaccines or the rest of it. I hate to tell you this, but according to my scientist daughter,
yes,
that if you do have a bad reaction or a bad, it's because you have a strong immune system. So there.
Oh dear, I think I've just got old bones. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, goodness me.
Because she was saying about, we were talking about the fact that these 80-year-old people or 80-year-old and 70-year-old apparently don't really react. And I said, why is that? And she said, because their immune systems are weakened, Mum, that's why. Okay, so that means yes, indeed. She said, that's good news, Mum.
Absolutely.
Like, well, that made me feel a lot better.
Oh, well, there you are. You are special after all, you see.
There you go.
Lucky lady. Oh, goodness me, that was a sneezing fit and a half, that was. Yes, I had heard as well that there was a difference between sort of, generationally and all that kind of stuff, and also other underlying factors, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But I think the metaphor itself still stands, doesn't it? It's kind of, you are the difference that makes a difference in your business, and if you are feeling like there is too much competition or too many other people doing what you do, or there's any reason to not be yourself in your business, then surely this is something that will hopefully change your mind about that, because there was no other difference for us other than a slight change of timing, but your reaction was very different to my reaction, and that just goes to show, I think, that we can put all these things in place, we can have all the systems, we can have all the processes, we can have all the whatever, but I think it comes down to as well mindset as well, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. And I was thinking, but I think you're so right that it is I was thinking this last night, actually. I don't know how my thought process came onto this, but I was thinking about gurus, and kind of like gurus and people who are out there who set themselves up as a guru. Anybody can be a guru these days, and if you set your mind to it, can't you? It's self-proclaimed, self-anointed guru. But a lot of these, as you say, are talking about the same thing. They might be talking about mindset, they might be talking about marketing, they might be talking about money. It's the same, the same type of stuff. So what is it that makes you decide to pay attention to one guru or to follow one guru over another? And it's because they're all basically saying the same sort of thing. It's just really who they are, their personality, their philosophy, their outlook, their, just something that you resonate with in a way that perhaps other people who do the same thing don't resonate with you. And that's really what it's all about, isn't it?
Oh, completely. And I think that's why it's so important to not feel like, and funny enough, we were discussing this, weren't we, on the catch up for the complete trainer, and yes. I was saying, I must have wasted the first 3, maybe 4 years of being in business for myself, running my own business, trying to do the stuff that I thought I should do. Because that was my impression of what a business owner did, or what a freelance person did, and just sort of, having some success. I mean, I couldn't have kept the business going for that long if I hadn't had some success, but just feeling like, okay, but this doesn't feel, it doesn't feel quite right. There's something just missing. Excuse me. And for me, the biggest difference was when I kind of gave myself permission to be me. And it wasn't that I was not being me. I wasn't trying to be somebody completely different, but I was just being a kind of a held back, reserved version of me, instead of, fully stepping in to what I really passionately believed in, which, hasn't really changed in terms of online courses, and helping people to understand that a really good, effective and engaging online course is all about thinking about it from the learner's perspective, and thinking about it from the point of view of an online learner's perspective, which is very different to any other learning environment. And when I say online, I mean pre-recorded. Online. Virtual is slightly different. So, just almost feeling like I didn't have the permission to state an opinion or to back myself when getting into a debate around the various merits of doing things and how to do them and all that kind of stuff. And as soon as I gave myself permission to sort of step into being me and going, well, this is how it makes sense to me, and this is how I'm going to write it, and this is what I'm going to say about it. That was when I started attracting people who wanted to hear more about what I had to say, and what were happy to hear the way in which I presented it. The second sort of part of that equation was also then letting go of this idea that I had to have everybody like me. So stepping into being myself, and then stepping away from the notion that, it was a personal attack if somebody decided that they didn't want to learn with me. Because I can't possibly be the person that teaches everybody about online courses, or as it is now, websites, brands, funnels, videos. So I have to be comfortable with, okay, some people are going to be absolutely attracted to what I do and how I do it and the way I explain things, and for other people it's just not going to work for them, and I have to be okay with that, because otherwise I won't be able to move forward. I won't be able to fully embrace being myself in the way I project my business. And what have you. I mean, I don't know if you had a similar experience at all when you first started. Was there any kind of that for you, or you always you from the beginning?
Well, I don't know. I think because I think one thing I've noticed, because I do so many courses, and so I've done so much sort of development over the years, and different people putting forward their different theories and their formulas about what a successful business should be and what you should be doing and all the rest of it. I think there is it does put doubt in your mind. You just sort of think, oh well, I'm not doing that, and oh they these gurus are telling me I should be doing that, therefore I'll go and do it. I think I think it does sort of sidetrack you. It can sidetrack you, sometimes. Yes, sometimes they are showing you a better way, but other times they're showing you a way that perhaps is just not best for you.
Yeah.
I think it's about having that confidence to say, do you know what, actually, this I'm going to do this my own way, and in a way that feels kind of real and authentic for me.
Totally.
And I always know, we've talked about this umpteen times, and we'll talk about it umpteen times again in the future, but about the intuition, part of it, because I know if I'm ever hesitating around something, or I'm not doing something, and somebody has said, oh, that's a good idea, why do you do that? And I go, yeah, I'll go and do it, and then it's still sitting there on my to-do list and I haven't done it. It's usually because it just doesn't feel right. Always a reason, and it's usually because it's something that doesn't feel right for me for whatever reason. I can't describe it, but it just doesn't feel right. Therefore I don't do it. And I think there's been lots of things over the year. I mean, different people will have different ideas, and just because I mean a typical one for me is the membership model. So the membership model, Stu McLaren teaches obviously the best way to go about it, and a lot of these gurus do talk about the launch model. So basically your membership is it's not open all the time. You just open it up for 2 weeks of the year or whatever. You have this intense period of marketing and promotion, and then you get people in and there's all this hype, and then you close it. You don't do anything for another year. And for a long time, while I was going through Tribe and all that sort of thing, that oh God, I've got to change everything. I've got to this is the way I've got to do it now. I've got to, clearly the way I've been operating Trainer Talk has been wrong. That's why it's been so slow to grow, obviously, because I've been doing it wrong. But there's something inside me that told me I don't really want to do it like that. Now, whether that be right or wrong, who knows? Who knows if I did do the launch model, I may have more members. I don't know. But for whatever reason, it doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't feel right to me. And so I said, suppose what you've got to do is you've got to have the confidence to think, okay, well, instead of that that way of running a membership being, that is the way to do it. And if you don't do it that way, then it is wrong and you will never succeed. To go, okay, well, that's one way of running a membership over there, but it's not the only way.
Yeah.
And this is an alternative way, you know? So it's just having that confidence to kind of just sit with things, analyze things, and then just run your own race, really.
Completely,
you know?
completely, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense, and it reminds me of a video I did in the Get That Gang last week, maybe the week before, which was essentially saying there is no such thing as best. What you can have is best practice, but I've always said, even when I put together a list of, I think, between 60 and 80 markers of best practice for online course creation, still got it somewhere, and I use those things for various other content and what have you. But I was always careful to say, when I'm talking about best practice, this is just your starting point. This is what works the best for most people most of the time, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be absolutely right for you. But you've got to start somewhere. So start here and then work out whether or not you need to flex in one direction or another for what's right for you. And I think that anytime I see a post in a Facebook group where somebody says where somebody says what's the best, it's usually which is the best online course platform to invest in. And then what tends to happen in the comments is you get a ton of people going, oh, I use Teachable, it's amazing. Oh, I use Thinkific, it's amazing. I use Podia, I use Kajabi, and it's like, okay, you use those things and they're great for you, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be right for the person asking the question. So I usually go in, and I have to say, more often than not, it's not always something that gets answered by people, but it's absolutely the right question. Is, where are you in your business? What are you trying to achieve? What are you looking for? Because there are pros and cons to each of them. And one of the things that my gang stars, my Get That Gang people, have asked me to do is put together a proper comparison of each of the major platforms or solutions that are out there for people creating their online courses, talking about, okay, here are the pros and cons of each of these, and if your business is here, this is the right sort of thing for you. But if your business is over here, then you probably don't need that, but you might want to look at these solutions, and helping people to sort of narrow down the options for themselves. Because all they'll get anytime they post in a group is a flood of people going, this is what I use and therefore it's the best. And it's no, it isn't. It absolutely isn't. And you have to do your due diligence. You have to understand. And when you're starting out, you very often don't understand actually what are the things that are important to you, which is why another reason for my other saying, which is only fossils are set in stone, just make a decision and go with it. Because the sooner you make a decision, the sooner you can start learning what works for you and what doesn't. The more time you spend researching, the more confused you're going to get, because you don't know what works for you yet. So you have to pick one. So if your budget is the thing, then pick the cheapest one. If having lots of bells and whistles is your thing, then pick that. But just pick one and get started, so you can start that process of learning what works for you and what doesn't. So I absolutely agree on that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, good stuff. So what have the dogs been up to this week then?
Well, apart from snaffling all sorts of food and oh god, Mum was awful yesterday. I had to tell her off in the end. She was giving him so many treats. Bear in mind that Copper is supposed to be on a diet, and and therefore, oh no, I can't give you anything, Scamp, because Copper's on a diet. And then it's like, oh well, you can have this. Oh well, you can have that. And then there's the scraps from the table. And then she ends up having a chocolate digestive, and she gives half of it to the dogs. And I'm like, no, that's poison. You can't give dogs chocolate. And I said this after the first piece, and then she's like, oh well, it's only a little bit like this. Oh, Mum, stop giving poison to my dog. It was just, oh my god. And yes, it was a tiny little piece, and I know that there is a difference between that and dogs that eat whole boxes of chocolates and have to go to the vets and that kind of thing. But seriously, it's just like, oh my word. But they are, I mean, you would think, wouldn't you? And we've both had experience of this with dogs. You would think that they never actually get any proper food.
Oh, I
The way that
know.
they blooming beg for stuff, or take their chances when they can. I remember when I first got Scamp, I do have a table in the kitchen, but I prefer to eat in the lounge on the sofa when it's just me. And I was having my whatever the meal was. I can't even remember what it was. And this was probably about, I would say, 6 months to a year after I first had Scamp. So he was just starting to grow into his personality. As a rescue dog, they take a lot longer to trust. And I will never forget this. He kind of put both paws up on the side of the sofa and just sort of stretched out like this with his head to one side. So he wasn't even looking at the food and just thought, oh, I'm just stretching. And then he brought his head back round and it was right by my plate like this. I'm like, mm-hmm. Yeah, really subtle, mate. And I laughed so much a bit of food fell on the floor. So he got that. So it's like, oh, damn it. Now I've rewarded my dog for begging. But the other one that springs to mind is when Copper, I had a muffin or a cupcake or something anyway in my hand, and John had asked me something. He was sitting down and it was something on his iPad, so I was sort of leaning over, and as I leant over I sort of put my hand down by my side with the cupcake to kind of balance, which Copper clearly took to mean that he was allowed to jump up, and whole top of this thing had gone. And it's like, oh my word. Naughty boy. And he's like, nom, 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 getting away with it. But oh, honestly, the begging dogs, they are.
The begging dogs. Well, when the kids were younger, that like and when Jen was younger, she used to have a variety of different poses and for begging, and the kids always used to go, oh, begging position 1, begging position 2. Begging position 3.
Absolutely. Oh dear. I mean, they can be quite inventive about the ways in which they sort of manage to wheedle themselves into a position. Scamp was doing it last night when I had some apple and cheese and biscuits and sitting on the sofa because it wasn't a proper meal or anything, and he was sitting right next to me, not looking. They never look, do they? They always give the side eye, so they'll sort of look in one direction, just kind of like this business. And it's just, you're not having anything, mate. I know that you love cheese, but it's not happening. It's my food. And the only reason that he started getting really, really cheeky about his begging is because of my blooming mother. It just, oh, but look at him. Oh, but, and now I have to deal with the behaviour. Thanks for that one.
And they're such opportunists as well. That's the thing. The funniest thing that ever happened, that didn't involve my dog, but it didn't involve Jen, but was involved next door's dog, Cookie, in our old house when we lived in Droitwich. And Amy had gone there and she'd forgotten a key or something like that. So she knocked on the door and she went in there after school. And Nikki, the woman next door, said, oh, do you want to stay for tea, Amy? And all the rest of it. And she said, oh yeah, so basically she was in the front room, I think. And then she heard this shouting coming from the kitchen, like Cookie, and all this sort of stuff. And she went in there and on the table, they had this big table in the kitchen. On the table, there was this big pot of casserole that was going to be for the kids' tea. And Cookie had her head in the whole casserole.
Well, if you're not going to put a lid on it, what do you expect?
Exactly. I know. It was hilarious because Amy said that she heard this shouting and Nikki was going absolutely ballistic. Tried not to laugh because it was so funny.
It is hilarious.
To this day, it was about 10 years ago. It's the highlight of her day.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's one of the highlights of her life.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody cares to over YouTube, there are all sorts of, just dogs behaving badly, clips and things like that. They are so hilarious, though. I mean, not at the time when you've been preparing something, but afterwards, wow, inventing new ways to snaffle food. Honestly, ridiculous, absolutely. I mean, I think we've mentioned before, Scamp will, when Copper can get a bit particular about who's allowed to go outside whilst he goes into the garden to do his business, It's a long story. Anyway, Scamper's picked up on the fact that if he goes outside with Grandma, with my mum, then they get a treat for going outside into the garden to do their business. It's like, fine. So what he will do is, as soon as she gets up to let Copper out, he will go as well. And he has got to the point where he will go out the patio doors, he'll look at her, and he'll go back in straight to the sofa and sit there and wait for his treat. And it's like, you haven't done anything. What are you expecting a treat for goodness sake? And it's because she'll give it to him. Oh, well, no, you are rewarding my dog. You are literally rewarding him for not doing the thing that he, you know.
Oh,
and then she gets this tub of treats out. And they're like, you know, that sort of size, something like that. Put 3 in her hand and giving them to him. I said, can you do that one at a time, please? He doesn't know the difference. It's like, oh dear. He's got to go for, you know, in the next month or so, he's got to go for his kennel cough and his boosters and, you know, get the flea treatment, the worm treatment, and all that kind of stuff. The vet is going to give me a right telling off if he turns up as a porker. Just, you know, honestly. Anyway.
And on that note,
yes, shall we?
Goodbye. Yes, indeed.
Oh, thank you, everybody, for your time, your patience, your attention, your eyeballs, if you're watching us on YouTube, or if you're listening to us in the more traditional way that podcasts are consumed. Thank you very, very much. We do appreciate it. And next time we come to you, we will be in our centenary. It's very exciting.
Episode 100. Here we go.
Definitely. So take care, everybody. Have a great week, and we will speak to you again soon. Bye.